Duke, what's with the hair? You got aspirin?
You should feel better momentarily, and your memory will slowly return.
Duke, what's with the hair?
The specific
Question. What kind of bear is best?
That's a ridiculous question.
False. Black bear. Fact. Bears eat beets.
Oh.
Bears. Beets. Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not...
Yeah, Bob. You remember Bob, the guy that's gonna launch a nuclear attack? You got any more abuse you want to hurl my way? Or are you ready to go in here and take care of Bob?
What do you propose, Bob?
When in doubt, C4.
Well, howdy, 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 campers. It's your favorite little penguin Bob here, and we're going to have another episode of Penguin Thoughts. I got some thoughts I want to share, and we're going to talk about them, and of course, you got to get your iced coffee ready and strap on and get a fish going and get ready to have some more fun talking about weird things that penguins think about. Hey, Tracy. Oh, look, it's Rambling Bob. Hi, Bob. Yes. Hi. Okay, so anyway, I got a lot of things we're going to talk about today. We got some really interesting news. Hey, Perrin. Perrin's here too. Cool. We got some interesting news about Paramount and maybe even the future of Star Trek. I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen, but there's a merger with Paramount and with Skydance. Finally, it went through. It's been going back and forth, and we'll talk about it here in a little bit. Then we also got to talk about something that Mark Ruffalo posted on his Twitter account a while back, and it just really, I just couldn't believe this. And I'm glad that good old Gina Carano stepped right up to the plate and leg swept him down to the ground, baby, for the comments and for the House of Mouse, aka Disney, about what he was allowed to say and so forth. And then we also got a little bit of science at the end today's Penguin Thoughts, where we talk about a new way of propulsion, which is really kind of cool. I think it's almost akin to warp drive. So, with that being said, warp factor 5, shields up, let's go, baby. Oh, we're going to switch over. Okay. So first up, let's talk about the Paramount merger. Okay, I don't know if you've heard about this or not, but there has been some really mixed things with all this, because a simple fact is that Paramount and Skydance with this merger has been going back and forth to the table with each other constantly, and they are it looks like they maybe finally struck a deal that they both can live with, because if you didn't know or not, but Paramount and the streaming service, aka Paramount Plus, had not been doing so great. They are financially in trouble. They're in debt. And so Paramount has to do something. And so they have been looking for buyers. And it looks like Skydance may be the company that's finally going to come in and take over. If Skydance doesn't sound familiar to you, they're the ones that were responsible for releasing the Star Trek movies that J.J. Abrams did. Star Trek 2009 and so forth. So they're familiar with Star Trek, and I think that's one of the reasons why they are interested in this. Although I do not know exactly what this is going to be. The future's still kind of up in the air, what's going to happen. I would, ideally, this little penguin would love to see that good old, I hate saying his name, good old Alex Kurtzman would eventually go bye-bye, I think. Because at least that would get all this blasted politics and the worst stuff that he's put into Star Trek, and Star Trek can go back to being actual Star Trek, I think. I think who they need to bring in is Terry Matalas. Because if you haven't seen it yet, what's wrong with you? Star Trek Picard Season 3 has got to be the best Star Trek we've had under Alex Kurtzman. And it's because Kurtzman had nothing to do with it. He just kind of left it alone, and anyway, I'm rambling as usual, but let's dive in here to this article, and we'll get a little bit more into this as we talk about the future of Paramount and so forth. After months of negotiating, Paramount Global has made the call to merge with Skydance. By the way, as always, just got to remind you, all the articles and videos and everything I'm doing are down in the description of this live stream or video, depending on if you're watching it after the fact. Anyway, after months of negotiating, Paramount Global has made the call to merge with Skydance, ending the company's long-going Redstone era. Skydance founder David Ellison is taking on the role of chairman and CEO of the newly merged studio, while former NBC Universal CEO Jeff Shell is taking on the role of president. As one of the biggest entertainment studios in the world, Paramount has quite a few franchises that might be affected by this merger. And Star Trek fans should be the first in line to wonder what's next for Star Trek. So we're going to talk about, I'm going to read this whole article because it goes into, it's not real long, but it goes into depth of what's actually happening in this merger a little bit. And especially as it pertains to my all-time favorite IP, Star Trek. Yep, that's right, baby. I'm a Trekkie penguin. Anyway, so let's sip real quick. Sip your iced coffee. Gotta sip iced coffee. Stay focused and stay hydrated. Okay, continue on. There are certainly a few ways the Paramount Skydance merger could affect the Star Trek franchise going forward. Now, a lot of this is speculation, obviously, because we don't know what's going to actually happen. Looking at the full report could give us some clues as to what direction it could go. For one, the current leadership told employees that things would be business as usual until the deal closes. Well, that just makes sense because, that Paramount once it's taken over by Skydance is going to want to come in and do things their way. Until that finalizes, this thing's been going back and forth, so Paramount is not even sure it's going to still happen until finally they get it actually closed. So it seems likely that any short-term plans for Star Trek will remain in place. That means things like Starfleet Academy, which I am not looking forward to, and the upcoming Michelle Yeoh-led Section 31 movie. That one I might be interested in watching only because I like Section 31, but I don't know how they're going to do it. If it turns out to be more like Star Trek Discovery, I'm out. Paramount has always wanted, Skydance has always wanted things to be, with Star Trek, to be more on the big screen. Paramount has as well. You saw a trailer. I have not seen the new trailer for Strange New Worlds yet. And we don't know if season 3 is going to go forward or not. I know it may be filmed, but Skydance could come in here and scrap it all. Who knows? I wouldn't think they would do that, but you never know. It seems like Hollywood is always kind of shifting what they're doing nowadays. They're like in panic mode, I think. I think every single franchise out there is in panic mode because they are noticing the writing on the wall. The mass amount of inflation, the cost, people aren't going to movies as much as they did. And you throw in there the DEI stuff and so forth. People are just, they're checking out. It's going to take a lot for anybody to really kind of turn this around. It could be years before any of this happens, if ever, in Hollywood. Anyway, Shell, who is also part of a private equity firm called Redbird Capital Partners, involved in the deal, said it's a new Paramount. It's not just a catchphrase about the Skydance merger. It's possible that new leadership could mean a new direction for major IPs like Star Trek. Perhaps that new direction could include a bigger focus on big screen efforts, in other words, movies, leading to a fast tracking of the 4th film in the Kelvin timeline that has seemingly been in development status for years. It's been on, been off, been on, been off. I don't even know if it's ever going to happen or not. A new era for Trek. By the way, if you didn't know, I haven't watched it yet. But Netflix did finally release on July 1st, I think it was, the 2nd season of Star Trek Prodigy, which is what this is being shown right here. And I like Star Trek Prodigy, mainly because it's one of the ones that Kurtzman had nothing to do with. It's a Nickelodeon production. What are you talking about, Skynet, Perrin? You must be watching something else. Because I'm talking about Star Trek. I'm not talking about Terminator stuff. Yeah, season 2 is out on Netflix, as well as season 1's been there for quite a while. Just to give you an idea, I mean, Kurtzman, he's got an ego. That's why Terry Matalas has gone bye-bye. He, under Kurtzman, Starfleet Legacy, the one that's supposed to be taken over at the end of Star Trek Picard season 3, that was created by Terry Matalas, will never happen under Kurtzman. He doesn't want to be underdone. And I think that's also why he nixed season 2 for Prodigy, but Netflix bought it. Oh, you think you mean Skydance? Okay, I get it now. Anyway, so who knows what's going to happen with things dealing with Star Trek? Things are up in the air until this merger finally lands, and even then we might not know what's going to happen. But anyway, reading on further, it says, as for Ellison, who will presumably have a big hand in the Trek franchise going forward, he said of the Paramount Skydance merger, the key thesis behind this transaction is our desire to inject Skydance as a pure play content company to double down on Paramount's prowess as one of the world-class storytelling enterprises. In other words, it seems like Ellison is keen to double down on the popular IP that Paramount has amassed over the years. With a statement like this, it would seem like Ellison would want to lean even harder on the Star Trek franchise rather than dialing anything back. If they do dial things back, I think it's so they can refocus and go a different direction, possibly. What that direction would mean, I don't know. For me, I would love to see like Terry Matalas come in. Hashtag Terry Trek. Anyway, if Ellison is indeed looking to make content on a top priority after the Paramount Skydance merger is completed, then Star Trek would be the ideal place to start. The sci-fi franchise rivals some of the biggest franchises out there in popularity. There are quite a few interesting projects in the works for the Star Trek franchise currently. So hopefully Ellison wouldn't put the kibosh on any of those going forward. On the flip side of the coin, big mergers like Paramount and Skydance can sometimes spell trouble for beloved franchises like Star Trek. After all, these major deals see increased pressure on the new leadership to provide profits to the shareholders. Yeah, that just makes sense. In other words, the shareholders are going to say, okay, well, after we've merged, Skydance has come in and they've bought Paramount here, because they're calling it a merger, but it's definitely a buyout. And the shareholders are going to say, okay, what did we get from our money here? Got to let us know what we've actually, are getting out of this deal. So that puts the pressure on the leadership of the merger to make content and make storytelling and stuff profitable, which none of these companies out there have really been doing that, except for maybe HBO Max and some things with Amazon. But Amazon's, it's one of those things that they got a lot of cash on hand, so to speak, to just kind of burn through. Anyway, let's see, where was I? After all these, okay. While Shell touted Ellison as a creative, saying it's been a long time since a creative executive ran one of the big Hollywood companies, there's always a chance the financial pressures could lead to decisions to fan base finds unfavorable. Now, to be honest with you, I don't know if this right here, to me, makes a whole hill of beans, because if you don't remember or not, back in the heyday of OG Star Trek, Les Moonves was in charge of CBS and Viacom, who was producing all the Star Trek TV shows out there. He was not a creative exec, and he was kind of against Star Trek. But he also saw that it was profitable, and he let those that were involved in Star Trek do their thing. Alex Kurtzman is not a creative. He's a J.J. Abrams lackey boy. So he comes from that same thing. As a matter of fact, and I don't know if I put a lot of stock in this rumor or not. We'll see what falls out. To me, this rumor falls into the same category as, any day now, Potato Kennedy's going to be gone at Disney and Lucasfilm. Yeah, right. I'll see it I'll believe it when I see it. But supposedly, when Skydance was making the Star Trek movies, they were done by J.J. Abrams, and Alex Kurtzman was involved. Apparently, several times, especially on the second and third movies, there was a falling out between Kurtzman and Skydance. Skydance didn't really like him. So it's a possibility with Skydance coming in here and buying Paramount that maybe they might give Kurtzman the boot. And in my opinion, Star Trek would be for the better for it, but I'm not holding my breath. Take that with a grain of salt. I saw that in a couple of different YouTube videos, sources that I don't always 100% believe. So who knows? It can also just be wishful hoping. But anyway, fans hope this isn't a Warner Brothers Discovery repeat. At this point, there's still a chance that the Paramount and Skydance merger could fall apart, as the merger still needs to go through regulatory approval and a 45-day go-shop period where Paramount can entertain other offers. However, it does seem like both parties are pretty eager to push this deal through this time around. Like I said, the last several months has been going back and forth, but Paramount at some point is going to have to realize nobody else is really interested in you, and you either close your doors or start selling off your pieces individually, or you're just going to have to let Skydance get what they want. Because I honestly believe something's got to happen here, because Paramount is just drowning in debt. Sorry if this bursts anybody's bubble out there, Star Trek under Kurtzman has not been profitable. If anything, it's been one of the things that's been taking Paramount Plus down with it. Because Star Trek was being touted when Paramount Plus, actually when it was CBS All Access, and then they eventually became Paramount Plus. But when they first launched their streaming service, it was on the back of Star Trek. Well, when Star Trek started going downhill under Kurtzman and all this woke DEI ideology, it blew away all the original fans. And basically all that's left is you're really kind of the ones that like it, or like the normies, which is fine. I mean, if you're someone that likes current Star Trek, more power to you. But I'm so done. Just like I'm checked out with Star Wars and Disney Star Wars and all this stuff. It is just I'm apathetic when it comes to all this stuff anymore. I mean, there was a glimmer of hope, I thought, when Star Trek Picard Season 3 came out. Now, don't get me wrong, I love Prodigy, but it's a kid's show. So, I mean, it's not geared for adults. And I think it's because it's written by Nickelodeon, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It also feels like it's a continuation of Voyager, which I love Voyager. So that's kind of why I like it. Voyager's got to be one of my all-time favorite Star Trek series. Anyway, so who knows what's going to happen here? but I think they got to do something. So there you go. So that's it. So I'd be curious what you guys think about the merger here. If you got any thoughts on it, leave them down in the comments. If you're watching this or whatever later on Memorex, like Tracy likes to say. Let me switch over here to, I want to pull something else up real quick. Because I want to show this later on. Sip them while you got them. And because there's a trailer I want to show, which we'll show at the end of the thing. And I forgot to add this, and I just remembered it, which I'm going to also put the link to that when I get done with the stream here. I'll put that at the end of the information here. That's down in the description on the video. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing here. Over on Screen Rant, I don't know if you guys remember. I just saw this and I thought I'd talk about it. Because I remember when this happened. First off, I loved Smallville. I don't know if you guys remember the show Smallville with Tom Welling playing as Superman. Actually, he wasn't Superman. He was more Clark Kent. This was like when he lived in Smallville growing up. And it was for 10 seasons long. Matter of fact, I think it's still on Hulu. You can watch it. I don't know where else you may be able to watch it, but I know I can still watch it on Hulu, I believe. And there was a show in the CW Arrowverse, which, Green Arrow, Flash, and all them, that they did a thing. Yeah, your husband loved that show. Yeah, I love Smallville too. I couldn't get enough of it. And matter of fact, one of these days I want to go and watch it all over again because it's just that good. But there was a part in the CW Arrowverse when they did a thing called Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, if you remember what that was, but it's basically kind of like a multiverse thing. And they were showing all these different things. And in the promo, in the Menage, they left out Tom Welling. And so it led a lot of speculation thinking, okay, is Smallville not part of the Arrowverse? Is it not part of CW canon of all, DC comic stuff on CW. Yeah, I didn't really care for Supergirl either. That was a show that went woke. DEI, see, perfect example. Smallville is not. It's not woke. This is before all this stuff. Smallville's actually a really good show. Anyway, there was a thing right here. The Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earth showrunner, who is Mark Guggenheim. That's his name. Mark Guggenheim. Okay, he was the guy, it was kind of in charge of all of the CW Arrowverse shows like The Flash, Green Arrow, Supergirl, Batwoman, or Batwoman, I don't know what you want to call it. That show was terrible. I only watched maybe the first 3 episodes, and I never got back to it. Lois and Clark is good, but it's coming up on its final season. Because it's when what's his name? James Gunn moved over to DC and took over and heading up the DC over Warner Brothers. He wants to cast his vision. So like shows like Lois and Clark and things like that have to end so that he can present his Superman, which is currently in the works. Anyway. So getting back to this article right here. The Arrowverse Crisis on Infinite Earth show's showrunner explains the crossover's confusing Smallville choice. 1 year before Arrow debuted in 2012, the Arrowverse was born. Tom Welling ended his run as Clark Kent after 10 seasons of Smallville. That ended way before Arrow showed up. With the final season of the Superman prequel series, it seemed like the actor would never play Clark again. Thankfully, the Arrowverse changed that, with Welling and Lois Lane actress Erica Durance returning for the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. Though there was an issue. When it first came out, people thought they weren't going to be involved. On the Showrunner Whisperer podcast, Crisis on Infinite Earths showrunner Mark Guggenheim talked about why Smallville's universe was not included in the event's post-crisis montage. At the end of the crossover, several shots of heroes from all over the multiverse appeared. However, Welling's Clark and Durance's Lois were nowhere to be seen, which had some fans thinking Smallville's universe was destroyed. Guggenheim reveals the reason for them not appearing was that he did not think that would be a question, as well as Welling's pay, which had to be contained to one episode. It's probably the deal they struck out. Here's the full quote from Guggenheim. Why didn't we have Smallville? I'll be honest with you. I think it was two reasons. Number one, it never occurred to me until I got the question on Twitter that people think we did blow up the Smallville universe. So part of it was that, and part of it was we had obviously seen Clark and Lois in episode 2 of Crisis on Infinite Earths. For the most part, the going around the horn closing sequence montage at the end of episode 5 was to see all the universes and all the characters that we didn't get to see. If I could have done it all over again, it would be awesome to just have a shot of Lois and Clark on the farm kissing for the go around the horn sequence. But yeah, sorry, I dropped the ball on that. So he's finally admitted after all this time he dropped the ball. We only had Tom for a few hours, but also here's the thing. Under SAG rules, an actor don't get paid by the amount of time they spend on set. They get paid by the number of episodes they're in. So if Tom was contracted for episode 2, and if Tom appeared in episode 5, that would trigger a completely different payment. We certainly didn't have the money for that. But that really wasn't a factor. It quite frankly, just didn't occur to me. And I'm going to play a little clip here. I don't know if YouTube will flag me or not, but we'll see. This is the part right here that of Tom Welling showing on Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. And we'll just play a little bit of it, maybe a few seconds of it, and we'll go from there.
Hello. Hi.
Well, that's not very loud. Why is that not very loud? Jack up the sound here.
With one bare hand.
Hello.
Hi.
You are Clark Kent, right?
Can I help you?
Yeah, hopefully. This universe and an infinite number of others is in the process of blinking out of existence, and there are 7 people in all of space and time who can supposedly... Lex Luthor is going to try to kill you, Lois.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the little bit of it. You can go ahead and watch. I put a link to this video down in the description, so you can watch the rest of that. But that's kind of the cameo that we're talking about here that happened. but then did not get mentioned in or shown in the montage at the end of episode 5. So I thought that was kind of interesting. While Crisis on Infinite Earth's final episode did not pick back up the Smallville universe, the fate of Welling's Clark Kent and Durance's Lois Lane could be revealed in the future. While a live-action revival of Smallville is unlikely to happen, an animated sequel series for the show is in the works. For now, proper development on the show has not yet started, but Welling and Lex Luthor actor Michael Rosenbaum, by the way, if you didn't know, these two actors right here, Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum, they have a podcast, and I don't know if it's still going or not, but they have a podcast on YouTube called Talkville. And Talkville is where they break down all the episodes of their favorite episodes of Smallville and so forth, and things that were happening on set and what they were dealing with and so forth. So anyway, but Welling and Michael Rosenbaum are hoping that the Smallville animated series will move forward. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool to see. I'd be interested in seeing that, as long as they stay true to Smallville. Okay? In my opinion. You never know anymore with anything that's being produced out there. Is it going to go woke? Are they going to change the way it looks and feels? Are they going to make all of a sudden an actor be transmission or gay or something? Or who knows? You know, as long as they just stop focusing on that junk and make it about the original story and go back to the original good storyline and just kind of pick up from there, I'm down for it, baby. Oh, Smallville's one of my favorite DC properties out there. I really liked it when it was on TV. Anyway, so there you go. So let's transition here. We're going to talk about something that happened beginning of July. There was a post on X or Twitter by Mark Ruffalo. He's the guy who plays the Hulk in Marvel, the MCU, basically. See if I can start the stream back up. Am I back up? Stupid YouTube. Tell me they're not watching my stream. Somebody is. Let me check on Rumble. Yeah, it looks like Rumble's still going. Cool, I'm back up. Yeah. I warned you when I played that thing, we're not, and that means I'm probably gonna get a message. I don't know. We'll find out. All of a sudden, it said my stream was being taken down. I stopped it, started it back up again, so hopefully it's going stable now. I don't know if it was with me streaming or if it was YouTube, but if I had to guess right when it happened, it's YouTube didn't like what I was showing, what I was talking about. So, proving once again, YouTube is not really a free speech platform you think it is, because it's not. That's also why I dual stream on Rumble. So if something happens and I disappear completely from YouTube, I'll be on Rumble, baby. Anyway, getting back to Gina Carano eviscerates the Walt Disney Company as Mark Ruffalo compares America to Yahtzee Germany, to the Yahtzee crew. Former Mandalorian actress Gina Carano shredded the Walt Disney Company in response to a post from Mark Ruffalo comparing the United States of America to Yahtzee Germany, sorry. Needless to say, here's a post. Look at this post right here that Mark Ruffalo posted. Just for the record, history is repeating itself. He forwarded this post right here talking about how in 1933, the Enabling Act that became law in Germany that kicked off the Third Reich. Now, for those of you that may or may not know the whole situation with Gina Carano, this is the thing that Disney kind of fired her for. Not this particular thing, but she had a different post. And let me bring that up right quick here. I meant to cue that. So let me... Where's that at? I apparently need more iced coffee. I forgot 2 different things today. It just tells you this is a professional Penguin podcast. Right. All right, let me see if I can find this here. Because there is... Where's it at? Oh, I think that's okay. Wrong folder. Wrong folder. Nope, I had the right folder. Okay, give me a second. Blast it. Why did I not open this ahead of time? Is this it right here? Nope, that's the motion to dismiss. It's before that. No, 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 no. Where is it at? Oh. Yeah, I know. Twirl your thumbs. I wanted to show this thing. And I got the file to show it. Where's it at? Blast it. Let me see. Is it in my geek stuff? Could be my geek stuff. Nope, not my geek stuff. Do 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 do. Is that it? No, that ain't it either. Cotton, pick and blast it all. Well, fiddlesticks. Well, let me bring that up. Maybe this will work. Because it might be in this one. Jeopardy theme? Yeah, thanks. I know. I should have been better prepared, but hey, this is a professional podcast. No, it's not. Oh, turned on the wrong thing. Okay, where's the thing? Open up. Oh, wait a minute. I know where it's at. I wanted to pull up the original document of her court proceeding. Well, not there either. All right, let's see if it's in this one. One moment while I'm scanning through a document. Scanning. I'm scanning. You can picture myself using a tricorder. Nope, not in this one. God, picking. Yeah, very funny. Let me see if I can find it this way. Nope. I may just go on. Well, while we're waiting, watch this.
You're listening to Penguin Thoughts. These are the thoughts that penguins are thinking when they were thinking that they were thinking about the thoughts they were thinking when they were thinking them. That is, we think.
All right, let's just switch back over and go. I'm going to read the article. I'm not going to bring it up because there was a. I can't find what I did with it. It don't matter. Anyway. Okay. The thing they were doing with this was Disney canceled and fired Gina Carano because of a post that she posted on Twitter that was saying to be nice to each other's neighbors, take care of each other, and not be like how Germany was back around the Third Reich when it first started out. Before the war actually took hold, neighbors were fighting against neighbor. They were turning each other in. They were backstabbing and things like that. And that got her, which is not the same thing as what he's saying here. And it got her fired publicly. And that's what the whole lawsuit is about, which I got that PDF somewhere of her lawsuit because I've gone through it on this podcast before. I just don't remember what I did with it. Anyway, reading on. Carano responded to Ruffalo writing on X. Double standards on full display. It's a constant and obvious elephant in the room in Hollywood. There is example after example, such as Mark Ruffalo's below that proves this. Whom, by the way, I believe should have the right to express himself without getting fired. Although I cringe at most of all his political posts. He is an actor, but he is a human being passionately engaging in something that he feels strongly about. Kind of the same thing that Gina did. It must be a nice feeling to express yourself so freely. She added, not everyone in this country has that privilege without having everything that they love taken from them. Do we wonder why he has that privilege and I did not? The answers are in my case. Carano continued, I know people would prefer basketball players to just dribble or actors to just act. But when you're in a world where lives are being destroyed and lost all around you, how does any human being become forced to stay silent when death by injustice surrounds them? I agree with that. I've said this many a time. All that needs to happen for evil to win is for good men or good penguins to do nothing. That's why it's one of the founding things and why I started my Penguin Thoughts podcast, to share my penguin thoughts, my views, my comments, my ideas, my suggestions out there. That and 50 cents used to be able to get you a can of pop, but I doubt it now today. But nevertheless, there you go. Now that more like in $9 will get you an iced coffee. That's why I make mine at home. Sip them if you got them, as a reminder. Yes, if you're curious, this little penguin's almost always thinking about iced coffee. It's on my mind a lot. Anyway, Disney and Lucasfilm maliciously twisted the narrative of a meme I posted. That's what I was looking for, is that particular meme, which was encouraging neighbors not to demonize their neighbors, or history could repeat itself. They twisted that meme into saying that I was denigrating people of their cultural and religious beliefs, which she was not doing. It was suggested that I was comparing Republicans to the Jewish people in the Holocaust, something I never said or even posted, she asserted. That is correct. She never even mentioned Republicans. Now, guess who did make a post in the past equating the Republican Party to Nazi Germany? That would be none other than Mark Hamill and Pedro Pascal, a.k.a. the Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker. Shocker! Anyway, Carano then declared, I called no one a Yahtzee. I did not deny the Holocaust. Read the last sentence again. I never did this. Yet I was smeared as an anti-Semite. That doesn't seem to happen to a certain group of people that choose to use these comparisons as well. Why is that? The rules are for thee and not for me, group. So what are the rules exactly? She's hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Whack the hammer with the nail. Yeah, there we go. That works in my world. It's backwards. Anyway, this lie was fed to you by the corrupt media based on a statement, off of a statement from Disney Lucasfilm, who have since doubled down on their slander towards me. Yeah, they went as far as to try to blacklist her. She couldn't work in Hollywood. And we've talked about Gina multiple times on this podcast because I firmly and strongly believe that she was done wrong. And it was so wrong for her to be done that way. when she didn't deserve it. And the way Disney acted was not professional in any way, shape, or form. Their narrative took on a life of its own, while my own life and career were tossed aside, she wrote. The media repeated and repeated this lie until it became an unlawful fact. I lost my... Where was I reading? I'll just start here again. This lie was fed to you by the corrupt media based off a statement from Disney Lucasfilm, who have since doubled down on their slander towards me. Their narrative took on a life of its own, while my own life and career were tossed aside, she wrote. The media repeated and repeated this lie until it became an untruthful fact to many who aren't the best at doing their own research. Yeah, and that's one of those things that I've even talked about here. I don't want you to take what this little penguin is saying as the truth. Find out for yourself. That's what I've done. That's kind of why I present this stuff. When I research it and look through it myself to find out the truth and find out what's going on, because the mainstream media will not tell you that. They're corrupt. They're buying into the narrative. They're spinning a story. And especially Disney. Disney's putting a spin. They're putting their spin on everything. All you have to do is watch a Disney product, and you'll see it. Who instead listen to fake... people aren't doing their best at research. Instead, listen to fake news and what we've seen journalism digress into. Spare a few brilliant journalists, Carano noted. Next, she stated, a demoralized society becomes hungry for propaganda, willing to give their rights and the rights of others. Give up their rights and the rights of others. It causes division and drives societies into a mob mentality. Picking on a group of people, turning neighbor against neighbor, is one of the largest reasons the gates were opened for the Nazis to come into power in the first place. Now, think about this. How many times have we seen, especially from Disney, for example, when they release a new show, like, for example, the latest Star Wars show, The Acolyte, before it even released, the press about it, the promotion about it was saying that if you don't like this, you're an ist or a phobe, you are a Yahtzee, you need to be canceled. You're the problem. You're a bigot. You're the issue here. Because you're supposed to like everything we give you. Just consume content and be happy about it. And they're spinning their own narrative. They want to condemn those that are not agreeing with their particular mindset. They want to turn everyone against each other. They're doing that to start up strife. Instead, they could be promoting, for example, they could have promoted the Acolyte show is, oh, this is a new Star Wars show. Now, I don't know what they could really say about it that would make me, really love the thought about it, because if you've seen it, it's not good at all. It's actually, in my opinion, just when I thought like Kenobi and Ahsoka couldn't make Star Wars any worse, I was wrong. Acolyte makes it even worse. Anyway, getting back to the article. The media manipulates the masses so easily based on their affiliations with large corporations and powerful people who signal and encourage them who to destroy. Instead of reporting the truth, they want to tell the story. So, as before, I have always liked showing one of my favorite YouTubers that I watch, mainly because this particular YouTuber is in the know with Gina Carano. He knows her personally. Matter of fact, he goes around with her to all these little meet and greets that she goes on, and he's kind of like her little lackey. He's a guy named Drunk 3PO, Jay. And I thought he's got a little 8-minute video here. I thought we'd watch it and see what Jay's got to say about it. And there's the link to this video down in the description. And Jay lets me, I actually have talked to him via email. He lets me show all his content, as long as I put a link to the video in the description, which I have no problem doing, because, you know, if somebody was watching my stuff, I'd want them to promote me, and then I'm promoting them. So let's watch what Jay's got to say about this. Gina Carano destroys Disney in response to Mark Ruffalo. Okay.
You gotta love the fact that a one Mark Ruffalo,
what is with the audio
hawk for Disney's MCU, can just post.
Let's start this over again, because
you gotta love the fact that a one
low.
Mark Ruffalo, who plays the Incredible Hulk for Disney's MCU, can just post anything he wants without any repercussions. Look at this. This happened on July 1st. He goes, for the record, history is repeating itself, comparing America to a particular time period in Germany. That's right. I think he's complaining and crying about the Supreme Court ruling that just happened. But, you know, there was another person that worked for Lucasfilm that posted something about a particular time period, and that person's entire life was ruined. They were fired. Employees from Lucasfilm showed up out of nowhere, made up all kinds of crazy things.
All right, let's start this over again. Crying out loud. Come on, OBS. What's your problem? This has been a day.
You gotta love the fact that a one Mark Ruffalo, who plays the Incredible Hulk for Disney's MCU, can just post anything he wants without any repercussions. Look at this. This happened on July 1st. He goes, for the record, history is repeating itself, comparing America to a particular time period in Germany. That's right. I think he's complaining and crying about the Supreme Court ruling that just happened. But, you know, there was another person that worked for Lucasfilm that posted something about a particular time period, and that person's entire life was ruined. They were fired. Employees from Lucasfilm showed up out of nowhere, made up all kinds of crazy things about her. Oh, and they deleted those statements, by the way, but some people still have them.
Oh, there it is. That's what I was looking for. This was her original meme post that she posted on X.
And, you know, the career was canceled. Nobody wanted to work with this person anymore because of a social media post. I wonder if Mark's going to get the same treatment. What do you guys think? Think Mark will get the same treatment as Gina?
Nope,
or does
he won't,
Mark
Jay.
have the right think for that particular company? Well, Gina has a great response, and you're going to want to hear it. But before we get there, could you do me a favor and please hit the subscribe button? Look at that. We're almost at 90K. It is a free thing you could do that helps out the channel. It means the world to me.
He's
Thank
actually
you so
at
much
90K right now,
to everyone who's
91,000.
already subscribed.
Way
Now
to
let's
go,
go
Jay.
to Gina Carano's Twitter and see what
I'd be
she
happy
had to
with
say.
half of that.
Double standards on full display. It's a constant and obvious elephant in the room in Hollywood. There is example after example, such as Mark Ruffalo's Below, that prove this. Whom, by the way, I believe should have the right to express himself without getting fired. Although I cringe at most of all his political posts. He is an actor, but he is a human being passionately engaging in something that he feels strongly about.
Yeah, we should
It
have the
must
right to
be
be able
nice.
to say how we feel about things.
It must be a nice feeling to express yourself so freely. Not
Without
everyone in
worrying
this
about
country
being
has that
canceled or
privilege
somebody
without
coming
having
after you.
everything that
It's
they
just an
love
idea.
taken from them. Do
A
we
thought.
wonder why he has that privilege and I did not? The answers are in my case. I know people would prefer basketball players to just dribble or actors to just act, but when you're in a world where lives are being destroyed and lost all around you, how does any human being become forced to stay silent when death by injustice surrounds them? Disney, Lucasfilm maliciously twisted the narrative of a meme I posted, which was encouraging neighbors not to demonize their neighbors or history could repeat itself. They twisted that meme into saying that I was denigrating people off of their culture and religious beliefs. It was suggested that I was comparing Republicans to the Jewish people in the Holocaust, something that I never said or posted. I called no one a Yahtzee. I did not deny the Holocaust. Read that last sentence again. I never did this. Yet I was smeared as an anti-Semite. That doesn't seem to happen to a certain group of people that choose to use these comparisons as well. Why is that? The rules for thee and not for me group. So what are these rules exactly? This lie was fed to you by the corrupt media based off a statement from Disney Lucasfilm, who have since doubled down on their slander towards me. Their narrative took on a life of its own, while my life and career were tossed aside. The media repeated and repeated this lie until it became an untruthful fact to many who aren't the best at doing their own research, who instead listen to fake news and what we've seen journalism digress into. Spare a few brilliant journalists. A demoralized society becomes hungry for propaganda, willing to give up their rights and the rights of others. It causes division and drives societies into a mob mentality, picking on a group of people, turning neighbor against neighbor. It's one of the largest reasons the gates were opened for the Yahtzees to come into power in the first place. Yeah, and the reason why I say the word Yahtzees, if you don't know, YouTube doesn't like the...
Yeah, see, he does the same thing I've been trying to do, Yahtzees. Because YouTube doesn't like the other word.
And they tend to suppress videos and things like that if you say that word. I don't make the rules here. I just try to follow them. So
I'm guessing that's why. I'm guessing exactly that's why my stream went down when it did, because it was right when I said that and I stepped the word and I actually said the real word instead of saying Yahtzee, and probably I either engaged some type of bot, or it may actually been somebody from YouTube actually watching my content at this time. I don't know, and they stopped my live stream. So, shocker, happens all the time anymore. Just because a little penguin apparently is threatening. Not. I'm a little penguin, for crying out loud, who likes iced coffee. I'm just sharing my thoughts. I'm not going after anybody. I'm not in the business of wanting to cancel someone or smear somebody or anything like that. I'm just trying to state what I believe and what I feel is happening, and let you decide for yourself.
Why is he saying Yahtzee? That's why I'm saying it.
Yeah,
this way of doing things cannot be what we base condemning and destroying people's livelihoods and careers off of. The media manipulates the masses so easily based on their affiliations with large corporations and powerful people who signal and encourage them who to destroy. Where my case stands as of now, we are patiently waiting with respect to the judge's ruling on whether she will grant or deny Disney Lucasfilm to dismiss the case that I've brought against them. My hope is that my case brings balance back to a very broken industry. My case is not just for people who think exactly like me, but for everyone who will be and has been placed in this position.
I agree 100%. She said this before, but I really do hope that the lawsuit she has against Disney with this, that good old Elon Musk has made happen that will bring back some type of balance to a very broken industry. And if anything, at least bring to light the actions and motives of what I feel is a very evil company, Disney. They've lost their way, in my opinion. I believe, in my opinion, that they're evil because they are believing lies. They're believing to push this narrative instead of just getting back to making good old wholesome content, which is what they did when my two boys were being raised. When growing up, I watched Disney with them, all because of the simple fact that they had good content and it was not pushing some type of message, but a lot of times it had moral truth in it, even. And they've kind of like gotten rid of all of that, in my opinion, today.
Let's restore the balance, something that I believe the majority of the industry desires, just as I believe the majority of our beautiful country desires as well. We can have conversations where we don't agree. In fact, we just might learn something from each other through more conversations.
I love what he says right there, what she says right there, and what Jay's even reading about it. We can have conversations where we don't agree. My goodness, what kind of world would we live in if everybody had the exact same opinion and everybody agreed? It'd be boring. You might as well go watch paint dry or grass grow. That'd be more entertaining. It's only our differences that brings a little bit of spark into things. And even at the end of the day, if we don't agree, as long as we disagree agreeably, what I mean by that is we don't take it personal. We don't take it as someone is because they don't agree with me, they are the worst person on the planet. And they just need to be destroyed and unalived and canceled. And that's not what mature people do. That's a third grade mentality. Little Johnny threw a rock at me on the playground today. I think he needs to be unalived because of it. Because I didn't get my way. That's exactly what it is. It's like throwing a temper tantrum. That's not what mature adults do. They talk things out. And even if they can't come to an agreement, they come to what's, I don't know, a really crazy thought out there, a compromise. A compromise is a joining of two disagreeing points of view to try to find common ground, to where neither side comes out the winner, but both sides are able to move forward in some sort of agreement. That's the way it should be. That's a mature thing to do.
Conversation over cancellation, like I've said from the beginning. So what do you think about Gina's response? Did it just expose Disney and their hypocrisy? I think so.
I think
Why
so
is
too,
Mark
Jay.
allowed to post whatever he wants with no repercussions?
Yeah.
Rules for thee, not
Right.
for me. All that stuff, you know how it is. Oh,
Yeah.
however you're supposed
It's
to
not
say
fair.
it. And let this set.
They get the Mark Ruffalo and Mark Hamill and Pedro Pascal and Pablo Hidalgo. All those guys get to say whatever they want. And at the end of the day, nothing happens to them. Yet someone who stands up for promoting someone to be nice to your neighbor, to care about each other. I don't know, maybe there's something in God's word about that, loving your neighbor as you love yourself. It's a radical thought.
Set the record straight that Gina's case has not moved forward. I know a lot of people were posting that it's going to Discovery and all that stuff. It hasn't. She actually posted that herself saying, look, I know there's a lot of rumors out there and a lot of people are saying stuff, but we're waiting on a judge to see if they're going to dismiss it or go forward. So,
yeah, and I discussed this a couple of weeks ago on this same podcast, that the judge had decided to throw out Disney's motion to dismiss, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going forward with Discovery. Who knows what's going to happen? The judge, last I checked, the judge still hasn't decided what's going on with the case. Courts move slowly, government moves slowly, but nevertheless, the point is, at least this is not going to go away anytime soon, which is kind of good in my opinion. It means Disney's not going to get away with a win here. That Disney is not necessarily, I don't think, going to be brought to task on this, but at least things are moving forward, and it's bringing to light some actions from people that are just being downright mean. They're being like the fish in the Armageddon thing. Yeah, that very well could be. Most of the time, Perrin, I agree with what you're saying here. Maybe that's the thing. They don't love themselves. Most of the time, why people say the mean things they do, or they're negative, or they're bashing somebody, or going after them, it's because the truth of the matter, if they get down to the nitty gritty, they don't love or like themselves much at all. So because it's this theory of misery loves company. I don't know if you've ever seen how they make crab traps. Crab traps don't have a top on them. And the reason for that is when a fisherman catches a crab, they put another crab in there. If that crab tries to climb out and escape, the other crab will pull them back down into the trap so that no crab can leave the trap. I don't really totally understand it myself, but I agree with what you're saying there, that maybe it's because Disney, the people that are in Disney, probably don't love themselves that very much. So because they don't like themselves, they don't like anybody else either. And some of it's also ego, and that they believe that their way is the only way that it should be in this world. That's not having a godly mindset. A godly mindset puts God first, puts him on your throne, and removes you as the person that's on the throne of your heart. Then, in other words, your life is no longer your own. You live for God. When it comes to most people, especially people that aren't living for God, that don't know him in that way, they live for themselves. And the result is they're very selfish. A lot of times, take it to the extreme, they're narcissistic. They believe their way is the only way, and that anybody that doesn't believe what they should, they throw out spit, venom, and poison at them, and want them canceled, and want them to go away. And that's kind of what we've seen here with Gina Carano. The mere fact that Disney continues to let things like Mark Ruffalo put a post just further shows exactly the heart and soul of what they believe and who they are as people. That it's okay for someone like Mark Ruffalo to make that post. They do nothing about it. But when somebody, heaven forbid, stands up and says, hey, love your neighbor, that person they go after and they want to cancel. Because we live in a clown world right now. Evil is good and good is evil. And I just can't handle it. Anyway, let's transition to the last topic and find our way out of here. There is possibly a new way of propulsion. We're going to get geeky. We're going to geek out here about things, and we're going to have a little bit of science and physics, which I love this stuff. But what brought this to my attention was I was watching a video, which we'll watch an excerpt a little bit here, by Glenn Beck, that he was talking about this guy named Charles Bueller. Dr. Charles Bueller, a NASA engineer and the co-founder, he's actually an ex-NASA engineer. He no longer works for NASA. He actually has his own company now called Exodus Propulsion Technologies, has revealed that his company's propulsion drive, which appears to defy the known laws of physics, has produced even enough thrust to counteract Earth's gravity. See, that's what I thought too, that it was an ion drive. But I think this is actually maybe a little bit more than an ion drive. I'm not really quite sure. But if this is actually true, it's really, really kind of promising. And it would change the way we drive cars, the way we go from planet to planet. Actually, we don't go from planet to planet right now, really. We could go to planet to planet. Things like that. Anyway. Says right here, in conjunction with that presentation, the discovery of propellantless propulsion. In other words, it doesn't use fuel to propel it. The direct conversion of electrical energy into physical thrust. Dr. Bueller also sat down with APEC co-founder and moderator Tim Ventura to explain how his past in electrostatics, which is his primary area of expertise, that's what he did at NASA. Dr. Charles Bueller worked at NASA with electrostatics. So, yes, he was probably involved in maybe their ion product, their ion division. It says right here, you are NASA's subject matter expert in electrostatics, Ventura clarified in the first part of the interview. So if anyone would know about conventional explanations for anomalous measurements for the measured thrust, it would be you, right? That's true, Bueller conceded with an outwardly humble shrug. And basically, I'm not going to read all this. We're going to watch a little bit of Glenn Beck's video, provided that YouTube lets me. We are going to... this is actually kind of like the some of the tests that he's done and working on things about this. You can read this article for yourself, but you can show that he has made steady progress over the years as with conventional and proprietary Exodus propulsion technologies, and now finally the thrust to thruster mass ratio is above 1, which means he's getting more thrust per mass that he has to thrust, which that right there means you're overcoming inertia, you're overcoming mass, and you're being able to accelerate faster than, I mean, think of it this way. If you had, this is why sometimes electric cars are so hard to make correctly. It takes time to work on it. Something goes wrong, things really go wrong. It's because the amount of batteries needed to drive the electrical motors to make a massive car move adds a tremendous amount of weight or mass to that car. Well, the amount of force needed by the thrust, or in this case, I'm talking about the electric car, the amount of electrical energy needed to produce movement, to move a large mass like that car, there's a ratio to that. And what he's stating here is that I don't know if it's ion propulsion or what, it's electrostatic propulsion is what I'm going to call it, that his propellantless propulsion has now reached a place to where it's the amount of mass you have to move with the given amount of thrust is less than the amount of thrust you have to produce. That means that basically movement can move almost exponentially based on the amount of thrust per mass ratio. I hope I didn't just lose everybody with all the more scientific part of this, because this kind of stuff intrigues me. But anyway, this may explain it a little bit better. So we're going to try watching Glenn Beck here. I don't know if this is going to stop me or not, but we'll see what we're doing here. So let's just watch it. It's 15 minutes long. I don't know if we'll watch all of it, but we'll watch enough to where he can talk a little bit about it, and then also get introduced to Charles Bueller.
Well, I'm so excited, and just we're about to geek out with Charles Bueller. He is and
actually, this is why I when I first saw this, the link to this video, by the way, is down in the description as always. And I subscribe to Glenn Beck. I watch his stuff, and I don't know if I really watch a lot of the political stuff he does, but he talks a little bit about everything. In this case, the scientists create an anti-gravity device that could revolutionize transportation. And when I saw that, I did like what Glenn Beck here's done, geeked out over it. I couldn't believe this. And I did some research on Charles Bueller. He is the real deal here. So the stuff he's saying very well could be a reality at some point. I don't know how soon of a reality. It could be, who knows, 10 years down the line, 20, 50, I don't know. Blast it, it switched again. Why does it do that? That drives me nuts.
Founder of Exodus Propulsion Technologies, NASA Electrostatics and Surface Physics Laboratory as well. He's an engineer. He believes he's found a way to overcome Earth's gravity. This is crazy. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So can you explain this as much as you can in layman's terms?
Look at that cougar back there. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted. I saw a big cat. That's weird. I never even noticed that before.
On what you've discovered?
Sure. But I do have to caveat first that this is not sanctioned by NASA. This is work that we've done outside of NASA as a team.
Yeah, Charles Bueller doesn't work for NASA anymore. He actually has his own company.
Oh.
We're made up of a lot of scientists and engineers throughout the aerospace industry, but this is not NASA work, and there's several reasons for that.
Okay, good. I'm actually happier about that.
It's a private sector,
private industry coming up with things.
That's kind of a good thing.
Okay, so Charles, tell me what you've done.
Well, we've been exploring propellantless propulsion for several members of our team for several years. Gosh, I've been doing it for 25 years. My colleague's been doing it for about 15 years or so.
Wow, 25 years. Can you imagine working on the same thing for 25 years?
But when we joined forces in 2016, we were able to see some magic happen. And then we didn't really understand it until about 2018. And that's when we kind of hit the ground running once we understood it. And then we didn't come public with it until earlier this year.
So when you say you really didn't understand it, the articles that I've read say you still don't fully understand what's going on because it seems to break the laws of physics and gravity.
That's correct. So when I say we understand it from a classical point of view, but we know that can't be the full picture. There's got to be some kind of quantum mechanics involved.
Got to be
but
things that
we at least know enough to do some engineering around it. Based on the conservation of energy laws. And we tested that. And we've made about 1,500 test articles in the last 8 years. So,
1,500 test articles in the last 8 years on this. He's been testing electrostatics and surface physics laboratory. Nice. First off, let me explain why I keep pausing it. I keep pausing it because of YouTube, I want to make sure that they understand that I am not watching this outright. I'm actually reacting to it. I'm actually giving my comments and my thoughts on this. I'm not just showing a Glenn Beck video just to show one. I want to talk about this because I like this subject. I used to also be a physics high school teacher, or at least I taught physics in high school. Also taught computers and things like that. But physics has always been kind of a fascinating subject for me. It's always it's my favorite subject in science, because it always kind of explains. It's like the math of the real world. It explains in detail to me what exactly it is, how things happen sometimes. It doesn't explain everything, obviously, but it does explain a lot of things, especially about motion, and forces and gravity and mass and acceleration and things like that. It just fascinates me.
We're learning. We learn every day because we test just about every day.
So what this would allow at scale, and if you could do it not in...
Now, what he means by at scale, he's talking about that right now they're doing testing like I showed in that article right here of a small scaled down model of what that's what you always do when you do like testing and so forth. This is a vacuum. It's in a vacuum. They're testing this. He made this particular object that's using electrostatic for motion. I assume that thing kind of spins in there. But what he's doing is he scaled it. He eventually will scale it up to full size, so it can like move like shuttles in space or like cars or things like that. But you always start down. That's what he means by going to scale.
Not in a vacuum, but space is a vacuum, so we know it would work in space. Is that right?
Well, that's this. We need that
theory
verification, to prove that it is actually
right
a separate force that we have not yet seen in nature. So to do that, no one will believe you until you actually do it in space and see it move.
Sure. So you have found a way. I mean, when we think of sending things into space, we think rockets. And that is probably one of the more dangerous moments.
Yeah, now rockets are considered a propellant propulsion, ways of propulsion. What that means is it uses fuel, like rocket fuel, like gasoline and things like that. Actually, it's more like a oxidized liquid oxygen. Is a lot of what you see in like the rockets that go up in space right now. And like what he's talking about, that's a very dangerous moment when it happens, because basically you're strapping yourself to the top of a giant candle that can explode. And this would change everything when it comes to that. This guy, Charles Bueller, is talking about no more dealing with any type of fuel of any kind, that you would not have to take off from Earth using rocket fuel. You wouldn't be strapping yourself to a giant burning candle that can explode. Instead, you'd be using electrostatic propulsion.
When you're going into space, is
basically
all of that thrust behind you coming from propellants, and you found a way now to possibly put rockets into space without it really being a rocket. What is it that is the propellant?
Well, that's the nice thing about it. It doesn't use propellant. It's propellantless propulsion. So you can imagine the skin of your aircraft being the thruster, if you will.
Ooh, that's kind of cool. So basically, instead of actually having a part that's got the nozzle that basically the chemical reaction that happens, by the way, Tracy should know something about that. The chemical reaction that happens when you are producing thrust from the oxidation and the fuel being burned up in a traditional rocket, that would be completely different here in this case. that he's talking about actually the whole thruster is the actual whole aircraft itself, and it's not really the thruster in a conventional sense. It's kind of like more like electrostatic repelling, or like how you could, if you've ever seen like a magnet floating, like a piece of metal floating above a magnet or something like that. Yeah, explosions. That's traditional propulsion, what we see in rockets. A controlled explosion. This has no explosions in it whatsoever. It is completely explosionless. It doesn't have any fuel. It uses electricity. So anyway,
it's a paradigm shift in the way we think about transportation. It does seem to violate a lot of old classical laws, like the rocket equation and other classical mechanics.
Yep.
But those equations are, almost 400 years old. We have a lot of new physics since then. And I think this is taking advantage of some of the, not the 20th century quantum mechanics as much, but more the 19th century E&M physics, electricity and magnetism. So you're right, it will replace rockets because about 90% of the rockets by mass and volume is just fuel.
Right.
If you get rid of all that,
Yeah, did you catch that? This would be a game changer. It says right here, rockets, 90% of what we see. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting concept. It's why I wanted to talk about this, because I really, when I saw this, I just couldn't believe. My mouth was dropping. I'm going, somebody's finally trying to do this. This is really kind of cool. It's a game changer. And I'm surprised not more people on YouTube are talking about it. But good on Glenn Beck for bringing this to light. Because, man, I'm loving this idea. Because it's going to change things. I mean, think about it. He's talking about it right here. He says that 90% of that rocket, that big old thing that the astronaut straps themselves to, 90% of that big old stick that goes up into the sky, into space, is the fuel. Can you imagine that? So 10% would be the size for this type of aircraft. That's small. It doesn't have to be real big to move it, because you're no longer using propellant.
Of the rocket,
game changer
by mass and volume is just fuel.
Right.
Get rid of all that.
Yeah. See, once again, I forgot to mention that too. The mass and volume of that fuel has to be taken into effect when you're talking about thrust. Okay. Perfect example of that. Let me bring that into something you can maybe understand. A traditional airplane. I don't know if you know this. Most people don't know this. Like, for example, like a private airplane, a Cessna, a little small, prop plane, that maybe sits a couple people. In order to get it off the ground, it has to use thrust created by the propeller, but that is controlled by it. That's generated by an engine that uses fuel. That fuel is stored in the wings of the aircraft, and that fuel eventually changes in volume and mass, and that changes the equations when it comes to amount of thrust required. For example, you have to know how much fuel is in an airplane in order for it to be when you design the airplane and things like that, in order to produce enough lift with carrying that much fuel and so forth. And it also changes the aerodynamics as you're actually flying. No different than with rockets as well. The more and more you get rid of the fuel, the aircraft becomes lighter, obviously, which changes the effect on gravity on it. And that's kind of how traditional propulsion works right now. This is something different.
If you get rid of all that, then you could theoretically start from Earth and go straight into space and then back and forth all over.
That is crazy. That will change everything. So
it will.
When you say the skin of the plane or the rocket or whatever you're talking about, is it kind of like static electricity? Is that what you're...
It's similar.
I just don't even understand at all.
Well, it turned out, initially I thought for 20 years, that it had to do with electromagnetism. So that's electricity and magnetism together.
Yeah, what he's talking about there with electric, this is not exactly what it's dealing with, but there is a principle, and actually this is like, some of you may have heard of the right-hand rule or something like that, but basically there is a principle in electricity and magnetism that says a couple things. One, that a current in a wire produces a magnetic field around that wire. And then there is also the converse of that. A wire in a magnetic field produces a current in that wire. And that's actually the basis for a lot of electronics and technology that we even know about today. I don't know if you do that or not. I mean, a transformer, perfect idea. A transformer. I'm not talking about the gigantic mechanized robots that transform into cars. I'm talking about an electric transformer that steps down voltage from, like, say, 120 volts to 12 volts. The way that works is it has interconnecting wires around an iron magnetic core. And then that produces, that iron produces electricity on one set. When you run electricity through one set of coils, and it passes through onto the other set of coils by using that same principle. What he's talking about here the last 20 years is what he thought electricity and magnetism is what he was geared toward. This is something similar. I'm trying to explain this as simplest as I can. I'm trying to put the cookies on the lower shelf, but it's not easy unless you understand science, baby. Because if you read through this article right here that I have listed down in the description, it's pretty heady. You got to have a good understanding. But I do like the fact that Charles Bueller does put the cookies on the lower shelf. But I want to explain it a little bit, if I can, in even simpler terms, if I can. So anyway, let's continue watching.
But we found out in 2018 it was really just a static electricity effect, which meant no current and the charges are static. That's a big distinction. It just happened to be the area of expertise that I am at NASA, is the electrostatics expert for the agency. So once I knew that...
Now, static electricity, if you don't know what that is, that's the thing. If you've been, like, during the winter, you're walking around on a shag rug with barefoot, and you walk up to a doorknob, or you walk up to, favorite person's left earlobe, and you touch it, and all of a sudden you zap them, and they go, "Ah, why'd you do that?" And they slap you and say, "Give me my eggnog back." Okay, but anyway, that's static electricity. Or you've ever seen someone take a balloon and rub it against, like, their shirt, and then it sticks to your hair? That's static electricity. The electrons in electricity that makes up electricity doesn't move. Now, it's not the same type of electricity we're talking about that you find in a wall socket. That electricity moves, either in DC, direct current, one direction only, or AC, back and forth, alternating current. That's the difference here. So he's talking about, this isn't traditional electromagnetism, what I was talking about before. This is just static electricity that's moving this, which is kind of cool. So picture that balloon and stuck to your hair, and your hair sticking up in the air type of thing. That's what we're talking about here. That kind of static electricity is the same thing we're talking about here that he's talking about here about the propulsion. Kind of cool, huh?
That's what it was. I was able to hit the ground running and to get thrusters that, in theory, should be able to lift under their own weight on Earth, provided they didn't have to carry anything yet. We're still working on getting it stronger, but that's essentially the gist of it. Static electricity itself.
That's that thrust, the thrust.
Energy, because there's energy between charged particles. We're all familiar with the Coulomb energy, like particles, positive particles repel, negative particles repel, but plus and minus attract. We're all familiar with that aspect of static electricity. What this has shown is that there is what we call electrostatic pressure in the presence of the field. It's basically the pressure itself, which is not something I invented. That's been around for 100 years or so.
Right.
But the pressure itself
Nothing
can
new.
act in such a way that if it's unbalanced, it can give you a net momentum transfer to your system. That's what's new. And how exactly this does this, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'll ever know, but it seems to work. So
yeah, it's
this is easy to manufacture, it's easy to test. Now, we've done all the tests in vacuum or...
If this guy's been studying this for 25 years and he don't know, I don't know if any of us can really figure it out. But the fact that it is happening, that this electrostatic pressure is kind of like a burst of energy that's causing a burst in momentum, or in other words, a burst of thrust. Very similar to like what Perry mentioned earlier about what an ion drive does. It's kind of the same way. Instead of using thrust from a fuel reaction, it's using pressure buildup from electrostatic electricity. Weird.
Or the lab. Now it's time to take the next step. Put it lower a little bit and see what it does.
Dr. Buehler, can I ask? I'm looking at a chart of your success, and it looks like in 2021 you just had phenomenal success. It just skyrockets up to just over a G of thrust. What happened?
By the way, when he says 1G, when he's talking about there's 1 times the amount of gravity. In other words, the way gravity feels right now for you on Earth. Okay, that's 1G. 2G is like 2 times the amount of gravity. In other words, it would be twice as hard to walk and jump and things like that. So that's what we're talking about here, if you don't know.
And at that time, where you just exponentially started having more and more success?
Well, we know that static electricity, this force, is based on asymmetrical capacitance. Now, asymmetrical capacitors have been around for 100 years. People have seen thrust in them, but they've been kind of ignored from the scientific community because of an ion wind effect if you do it in air. But if you ignore that, and if you actually test it in vacuum and test it correctly, you'll see that you'll get the thrust, actually in the opposite direction of the ion wind. But that's a geometry effect. So, parallel plate capacitors are parallel. If you change the dimension of one of them, you'll get a thrust. So that's a geometry effect. But there are many.
Now, I will give you an interesting story. That this is what, when I first watched this is one of the things that I thought of. Back in the day when I was growing up, me and my brother, my mom used to like to go to yard sales. And one time my brother went with her during the summer. And he came back with these 2 large electric capacitors about the size of Coke cans. And they had 2 terminals on them. And if you don't understand how a capacitor works, is basically it's kind of, think of like a battery, but instead of releasing the power over time, it releases it in an instant. Well, consequently, what it does is you can hook up these. He hooked up one of these capacitors to the battery, charged it up, and we were out in the garage. My dad was at work. My mom was doing the dishes in the kitchen. I remember this vividly. And my brother was not the sharpest tool in the shed at the time, but me and him used to get in a lot of trouble. But anyway, he decided with this capacitor, he's playing around with it, and neither one of us really understood it a whole lot. My dad always he worked in electronics, tried to explain stuff to us. But he took this screwdriver and he wondered what would happen if you touch both terminals of the capacitor when it's charged with this metal screwdriver. Well, next thing you know, we hear this and a big blue flash, and my brother, who wasn't very far away from the garage door when he did this, got knocked back to the garage door. My mom in the house, hers playing in the garage from the screen door, and she goes, "Everything okay?" I said, "Yeah, Mom, everything's fine. Go back to doing what you're doing." We didn't tell her what happened. But I said this little story, which was kind of silly, but I'm glad my brother didn't get hurt or anything. I didn't get hurt either. But the funny thing about the story was this what Charles Bueller was talking about made me think about that pressure, because I remember also there being like it felt like a little puff of wind. I mean, because I wasn't standing real close to him, but I could even notice that it felt like there was like a little puff of wind. I don't know if that's what knocked him back or if it just scared him and he knocked it back, but nevertheless, the electricity, when it came out of that capacitor, it had some force to it. And that's kind of what he's talking about here a little bit. It's what made me think of that. I just thought I'd share that story with you. Hopefully that may or may not help you understand, may even confuse you even more. I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to it. So let's back up a little bit here, what he was saying.
Actually in the opposite direction of the ion wind. But that's a geometry effect. So, parallel plate capacitors are parallel. If you change the dimension of one of them, you'll get a thrust. So that's a geometry effect. But there are many ways to make an asymmetrical capacitor other than geometry. So that's what we've explored, and that's what we've uncovered, and that helps. It makes things smaller, miniature, makes things two-dimensional, if you will, and lighter. So that's the big advancement that we've made.
Are there any videos that you guys have made showing this at all yet?
We have a couple on our website, and we're going to put a few more on in the next couple of weeks. But yes, so what we're doing now is we're trying to make videos to show people.
And there is, right down here, I thought it was down here in the bottom of the thing. Maybe it's not. Okay, if I Google, I'm going to Google. This is their website right here. Propulsion.space. Okay. And they've got some media pictures and things like that on it. Here's Charles Bueller talking about it a little bit. You can, and I'll try to I forgot to put that link down in the description. I will do that as well to this website. But basically, you can look a little bit more in detail about this. And I didn't even go to the Popular Mechanics article. I didn't realize there was. I went to the debrief one. That's the one my article right here is from the debrief. But there's also, apparently he did a Popular Mechanics article. Cool. I'll have to read that later. But nevertheless, gives, what his company's about. Like, what if a rocket motor worked more like a light bulb than a fire extinguisher? That's kind of what the gist of, I thought that was kind of a good analogy. Think of this as, instead of a rocket being like a fire extinguisher, it's more like the propulsion is you flip a switch and the light comes on. A light bulb. Anyway, there's a part in here I want to skip to. See if I can find it. Where he talks about how this affects us. Oh, okay. Let me back up a little bit here. Okay.
Never actually have to touch the surface unless they want to. That's very exciting. You don't want to touch the dust if you don't have to. You can just hover above it, and you can travel with the sun. There's a lot of cool things you could do with this technology, but a great demonstration of it would be on the moon.
So this would help, because as I understand it, one of the reasons we want to go to the moon again is we need a staging station if we wanted to go to any of the outer planets. This could make that
Mars or something.
We wouldn't have to have that step if you didn't need the propulsion, if you didn't need, some propellant that you would have to get off the moon. Correct?
No, you're absolutely right. Right now, NASA's aim is to go to the South Pole to extract water. Part of that water could be used for propulsion. You could split up the hydrogen and oxygen. But you wouldn't need to do that with this technology. You would just go to the moon, and then when you get tired of going to the moon, you can go to Mars.
Yeah.
Right now, we can go to the moon, theoretically, in about 2.5 hours.
Catch what he said there? Go to the moon. Lift off from Earth with this type, if he can make his concept reality and scale it up so that it works in a real life situation here. An aircraft using his electrostatic propulsion could lift off from the Earth and go to the moon in 2.5 hours. That's insanely fast, people. It takes a while to get from the Earth to the moon with conventional rockets. Actually, I don't even know how long it takes, but it didn't take no 2.5 hours. I guarantee you it takes a lot longer than that. I'm talking like almost a better part of a day or more. I don't really know. Let's see here. How long does a rocket take to get to the moon? 3 days. 3 days for a conventional rocket to reach the moon. And this guy's saying with this technology, it could take 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours! Oh, my word. That's crazy.
It's a very slow acceleration.
Wait. What did you say?
Yeah. That was my response, too. It's
since it's a constant thrust, theoretically, we should be able to put our thrusters in space and get to the moon in under 3 hours with the accelerations that we have. That's huge. We can get to Mars in about 5 to 6 days.
5 to 6 days. Let's see how long it takes to get to Mars. Mars takes 200 days. From Earth to Mars. 200 days. And with this technology, it would be, what do you say, 5 or 6 days? Yeah, 5 to 6 days. That means sometime in the future, we could see ourselves traveling to other planets. Anybody think Star Trek could be a reality? I do. I want to be a starship captain. Anyway. I just find this really absolutely amazing. So.
Oh my gosh. What? Okay, Hank, can you hang on just a sec? I need to take a 1-minute commercial break, but we have to continue our conversation if you have time. Propulsion Technologies is just that that will obviously change the entire world. This is so, Charles. I don't even know what questions to ask you. I've never been in this position before. How real is this? How long will it take you to go from where you are now to being able to prove it with an actual, some sort of vehicle?
Well, that'll depend on funding and accessibility to space.
Of course.
Verify that it's real. And then once it's verified in space.
I wonder if this guy shouldn't get a hold of like Elon Musk and with SpaceX. Might convince him that it might be a good way to take things. Who knows? I don't know. That'd be kind of cool, though.
I think it'll be easier to get funding. And the aim of that funding would be to help us to try to look at all the different aspects of the force and how we can improve it. There's many ways that we could travel down, many paths. So we'd like to explore all of those simultaneously, and that would help increase the test ratio that we need to really.
Are you publicly traded, or you're just looking for private funding?
Right now, we're just privately funded.
You should
invest. So.
You should do crowdfunding as well as private, because I think there's
they're not
hundreds of millions of people that would love to see this. Would solve so many problems. Is this the kind of you've only got a minute? Is this the kind of technology that would explain some of the things we're seeing, in those UFO?
Let me wait a minute. I want to see if I can find the part. There's a part where he talks about how it affect our daily lives, even.
It would revolutionize transportation as we know it.
Okay, here we go.
All forms of transportation. Cars, boats, trains, planes, everything would change. You wouldn't need an engine. You wouldn't need a combustion engine.
Catch that! All forms of transportation wouldn't need a combustion engine. That means wouldn't need hybrid cars or electric cars, or, well, I guess it would be sort of an electric car, but not in the conventional sense of an electric car we have today. It wouldn't, and things of going to the gas station would be a thing of the past. You might have to go to some place like, I don't know, you may have to, I don't know if you'd have to charge things up or not. Depends on, I guess, how the technology works. But the mere fact you no longer have an engine and a need for gas, that's a game changer. Now, the skeptic in me thinks good big oil won't let that happen, because it would mean they would lose money. But you know what? From a practical aspect, you have to start thinking about alternative ways of transportation. I don't think going green right now is the way to go. Are electric cars or hybrid cars cool? Yeah, sure. But I don't think the technology is there yet. Now, something like this could be a game changer when it comes to technology to provide a way of changing what we depend upon. Wouldn't be depending upon fossil fuels anymore. It'd be a game changer.
To burn fossil fuels, you wouldn't need propellers or wheels or tires. It would just revolutionize everything.
Did you catch that? Wouldn't need wheels or tires.
Yes, it would revolutionize everything if we can get this much above unity. Right now, we're sort of hovering around unity, but you need a little bit more to carry something. So,
okay, so wait a minute. What's unity?
Well, we define unity as the thrust needed to lift up the weight of the thruster.
Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of this. That's that in the article I was talking about right down here, the thrust to thruster mass ratio. The amount of thrust needed to get the object, just the thruster, the mass of the thruster itself, off the ground going. That's what he's calling here as unity.
Okay. So you need to add more so you can put a body or stuff or whatever in that thruster. Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what we need. So we need at least a double or triple the factor, just so we can lift up the power supplies for it and carry payload, whatever that is. So that's what we're working toward. But right now,
anyway, I'm gonna end it there. On that, I do have one last thing I want to show, but it's a different subject, and it's not real long. It's just a trailer from Film Threat. But I honestly believe this is the first thing I've seen in a long time in technology that has got me pumped. If this stuff is real, which it looks like from what I've been studying, that this guy is 100% legit, that he's not making stuff up. It's not something that's a far-fetched idea, that it seems like it's something that he spent his life working on at NASA and has now starting to come to possible fruition. And to me, it'd be interesting to see what actually happens. It would be so cool to change the way things move. That is such a game changer when it comes to, transportation. Think about a long car ride would no longer be a long car ride. It maybe be a few minutes. Of course, I don't know how safe some of this is, but I imagine that's all things he has to work out as well. But the mere fact of like going to like the moon in 2.5 hours or to Mars in 5 or 6 days instead of 200, that is just amazing to me. That's just flabbergasting. I just can't believe it. It's just wild. All right, so last thing real quick here. Next week on Film Threat, which if you didn't know, I did a long time ago when I first started doing live Penguin Thoughts. I started by doing the Film Threat, putting Disney Star Wars on trial for the death of a franchise. Well, now Chris Gore over at Film Threat, Chris Gore and Alan Ng are going to actually, it's the day after the last episode of The Acolyte, because next Tuesday is the 8th and final episode of The Acolyte. And he decided that he's going to make a actual funeral for that franchise. And here's the trailer he made for it. And I want to play that. May 25th, 1997 to October 30th, 2012. Wednesday, July 17th, Star Wars Funeral, hashtag, by Film Threat. You're going to have lots of different YouTubers on and so forth, and we're going to kind of give a send-off to the dead horse that Disney's been kicking around called Star Wars. Finally put it in the ground. And I am currently making a video that hopefully I'm going to send it to Chris Gore, and maybe he might actually watch it and give me thoughts on it. And I'll, of course, we'll put that up on my YouTube channel as well, so you can see it for yourself. But my thoughts is that next week on Penguin Thoughts, we will probably do a rewatch of the Film Threat funeral that he's doing on Wednesday. Because I want to keep my Penguin Thoughts still on Thursday. And it also gives a chance for them to be able to do it, because he said this thing's going to be like all day long. I'm not sure how long he's making it. He's not really discussed in detail the finer details of it yet, just that he's doing it. And that it's going to be all day Wednesday. And that's all I know about it. So there you go. So look forward to doing that next week on Penguin Thoughts. Get your iced coffee and stuff ready, because they'll probably be talking about Potato Kennedy there, Tracy. So you don't want to miss out on that. For those of you who don't know, Tracy invented this sipping game that when we were doing the Star Wars on Trial by Film Threat, every time they mentioned Kathleen Kennedy, and my profanity filter filtered out her name and called her Potato Kennedy, we would take a sip of iced coffee or whatever you're drinking at the time. For me, it's always iced coffee. So anyway, so get your sipping ready, get your puckers going, and get ready to go. Because next week, we'll be doing a lot of sipping during rewatching the funeral of a franchise. A franchise will be missing. Actually, I've been missing for a very long time. And I do differentiate between Star Wars and Disney Star Wars. This is the death of Disney Star Wars. Although Disney's probably not going to stop them from making content, this is just kind of a saying that the last content that they did, which is the Acolyte show, in my opinion, I agree with Chris's opinion on this. This is the final nail in the Disney coffin when it comes to Star Wars, and I think there is no coming back from bringing back good content for Star Wars. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Disney is capable of doing it. Unless, in my opinion, they fired everybody at Disney, and then we got a completely new Disney in Lucasfilm. But even then, with the new people, we don't know how they'd be. There you go. Anyway, that's it. That's all I was going to talk about today for Penguin Thoughts. And sorry that this little penguin sometimes was scatterbrained. I still have the Fish Armageddon on my mind. I got attacked last night by a couple of fish ninjas. They were really weird because they had Walmart coupons, which I don't think Walmart does coupons. You know what I mean? They came after me, and I fended them off the best I could. Luckily, I had a couple of tartar sauce packets hidden behind my left flipper, and I was able to throw it at them, and they ran away. But anyway, I'm rambling, and I'm going to get out of here. So catch you later, peeps. You be good to each other. Don't be good to the fish. They're mean. But be good to everybody else. Love God, and love yourself, and love the Bible. Talk to you later, peeps. Peace out.